My name is Rebecca Wilson. I am 29 years old, and for the past 2.5 years, I honestly believed I had found my person. I live in a mid-sized city, work as a project manager, and I am the kind of woman people call steady. I pay my bills on time, show up early for meetings, remember birthdays. I like plans, lists, and knowing where a relationship is going. For a long time, I thought that was a good thing. My boyfriend, Greg Hagerman, would say it like a compliment. "You keep me grounded, Rebecca," he would murmur, kissing my forehead. "You are my rock." I believed him. We met the way a lot of couples do these days, through mutual friends at a casual backyard barbecue. Nothing cinematic, no thunderbolt from the sky. Just easy conversation over grilled vegetables and lukewarm beer. Greg was 27, then working in marketing, cracking jokes about boring brand decks and clients who thought disruptive meant changing a font. He was charming in this bright, restless way, the kind of man who suggested spontaneous road trips at midnight and talked about future business ideas he never quite started. I was the opposite color-coded calendar, emergency savings, carefully mapped career ladder. Somehow it worked, or at least I told myself it did. We moved in together after a year. I shifted my life to make room for him in ways I barely noticed at the time. I adjusted my commute so we could have breakfast together. I turned down a transfer that would have meant more money, but less time at home. When his father got sick last year, I was the one who took time off work to drive them to appointments, who sat in waiting rooms with stale coffee, who organized insurance paperwork, because Greg could not deal with the admin stuff right now. When his side hustle tanked a little online shop that never gained traction, he confessed his credit card debt. One night, eyes red, hands shaking. I dipped into my savings to help him clear the worst of it. "You did not have to do that," he said, voice thick. I know, I answered. "That is what partners do." "You are my rock," he whispered, and I believe that too. Looking back, I see the red flags I carefully painted over. The way his eyes would linger a beat too long on certain women's profiles on social media. Influencers with glossy hair and impossible vacations. Fit girls posting gym selfies at 6 a.m. The way he would say things like, "She is wild, but in a good way, you know," and then look at me with this little half smile like he was waiting to see if I would flinch. I did not. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone scrolls. Everyone looks. Then there was Lena. Lena was from his gym. At first, she was just a name in a story. "Lena nearly died in spin class today," he would say, laughing as he opened the fridge. "She pushed so hard she almost fell off the bike." Later, I learned she was not just from his gym. She was his ex-girlfriend. One of those on-again, off-again situations that never quite died, just went dormant until someone was lonely or bored enough to poke it back to life. "Relax," Greg said when I asked about her. "We dated, sure, but that was years ago. We are just friends now. She gets my adventurous side. You get the serious side. It is balanced." Balanced. That word stuck under my skin like a splinter. The emotional distance crept in slowly like a draft under a door. Greg started canceling our plans last minute. A quiet dinner in replaced by the guys want to grab drinks, or Lena dragged me to this new rooftop bar, you would hate it too loud. Texts went unanswered for hours, then came back with "sorry, busy with work stuff," or lost track of time at the gym. I felt myself fading to the edges of my own relationship, but I did not push. I told myself relationships have seasons. People get stressed at work. Things ease and flow. One night about 8 months ago, he had had a rough week. A campaign at work collapsed, and he came home tense and silent, dropping his bag in the hallway. I ordered his favorite takeout and set up a quiet movie night on the couch. The kind where you do not talk much, you just exist next to each other and remember why you are together. He stretched out with his head in my lap, scrolling through his phone while I absently ran my fingers through his hair. I was just starting to relax when his screen lit up and his phone buzzed against my knee. I saw her name, Lena. The preview flashed for half a second, laughing emojis, something about round two and still sore in the best way. My stomach dropped. Greg snatched the phone up fast, tilting the screen away from me like a reflex. "Work stuff," he said too quickly. "Sorry, nothing important." I did not say anything right then. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe that work stuff sometimes came with heart emojis and inside jokes from an ex-girlfriend. That night, though, he talked more than he had in weeks. "You know what I love about you," he said suddenly. Eyes on the TV, voice soft. "You are reliable." It sounded like praise, but something in his tone stung. Reliable. Safe. Predictable. All the things marketing decks call not exciting enough. In the weeks that followed, Lena's name started slipping into more of his stories. How she was training for a marathon and convinced him to start long runs on Saturdays. How she dragged him on epic hikes he would never have tried on his own. "She makes me feel alive," he said once, laughing, as he scrolled through photos of some trail I had never heard of. I nodded, but inside something twisted. I had given up promotions trips and sleep for this man. I sat through hospital visits, balanced budgets, absorbed his spirals when campaigns failed. But apparently I did not make him feel alive. I made him feel secure, boring. The base camp, not the summit. It all built up to one summer evening in the park. We had planned a low-key date, just a walk and ice cream. The park was strung with lights between the trees, couples drifting along the paths, kids chasing each other near the fountain. It should have been romantic. He arrived 20 minutes late, slightly breathless, phone in his hand. "Sorry," he said, not sounding sorry at all. Lena wanted to grab a post-run smoothie, and she would not stop talking. We walked in silence for a bit, the sound of distant laughter and music filling the gaps between us. We found a bench under the lights and sat down. He checked his phone again. Then he said it. "So Greg began like he was commenting on the weather," Lena asked me out properly. "Like on a real date. Just us. No gym, no group hangs." I stared at him, waiting for the joke for the follow-up about how he had turned her down because he had a girlfriend. Me. He kept talking instead. "I think I am going to go for it," he said, watching my face carefully. "Look, Rebecca, you know I care about you. You are amazing. You are solid. But I have been thinking a lot, and I need to see what is out there, you know." A buzzing started in my ears. "What are you saying?" I asked, somehow keeping my voice level. He sighed like I was being difficult. "We have been comfortable," he said. "Too comfortable. You are safe. Predictable. That is not bad, it is just, I am 27. I want adventure. I want to feel that spark. Lena brings that out in me." The words landed like blows. 2.5 years of shared rent, late-night talks, hospital runs, debt payments, inside jokes, and he was measuring me against a spark. "And what about us?" I asked. "What about everything we have built?" He hesitated, then smiled, a small smug curve of his mouth that I will never forget. "We are not over," Greg said. "Not necessarily. Think of it like a pause. If things do not work out with her, you are next in line." Next in line. He said it like he was offering me a prize. Like I should be grateful to stand in the wings while he tried other women on for size. I felt something inside me go very still. The lights above us blurred slightly as I blinked, but I did not cry. I did not plead. "Okay," I said. His smile faltered. I do not know what reaction he expected, tears screaming a dramatic scene under the fairy lights. Instead, I stood up, smoothed my hands down the front of my jeans, and looked at him one last time. "You do not need a safety net, Greg," I told him quietly. "Not anymore. Consider me off the waiting list." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him on that bench with his options and his spark, my heart pounding, but my back straight. By the time I reached the edge of the park, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. If he saw me as a backup, I would rather be gone than chosen. I had no idea then how hard his world was about to crash without me holding it together. When I walked out of the park that night, the air felt colder than it should have. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was clarity. Maybe both tangled together. I did not rush home. I wandered for a while under the streetlights, letting everything settle in my chest like dust after an explosion. By the time I reached our apartment building, I felt strangely steady. Hollow but steady, like I was made of glass that had not shattered yet. The hallway light flickered when I unlocked the door. The sound of Greg's laughter drifted from the bedroom. A light, flirty tone. A woman's voice on speaker giggling. Lena's. I stood there for a moment, letting the betrayal soak into me, not as a wound, but as a confirmation. The proof had been in front of me for months. I had just been too loyal to see it. I did not confront him. I did not ask why she was on his phone the same night he told me I was next in line. Instead, I walked into the living room, grabbed 2 duffel bags from the closet, and quietly began packing. Clothes, laptop, birth certificate, the mug my sister gave me, my toiletries. The cardigan, he said, made me look like someone's dependable wife. Every item I placed in the bag felt like reclaiming a small piece of myself. In the bedroom, Greg's voice floated out in bursts. "No, she is fine. She is cool about everything." He laughed. "She knows how I am." He didn't know I was leaving. He didn't know I had already stepped out of the waiting list he'd created in his head. I didn't take anything that wasn't essential. Not the photos, not the books we picked together, not the plant that had somehow survived 2 years on our windowsill. I left the pieces of our shared life exactly where they were because they were his now, not mine. When the bags were zipped, I stood at the kitchen counter and wrote a short note. Rent is paid through the month. Take care. Nothing more, nothing less. I left it beside his half-finished bottle of kombucha. Then I carried my bags out the door, walked past the bedroom, where he was still laughing with Lena, and left without looking back. By midnight, I was at my friend Erica's apartment. She opened the door wearing pajama pants and confusion. "Rebecca, are you okay?" "I will be," I said. She didn't push. She just stepped aside, pointed me to the couch, handed me a blanket, and sat beside me. "You want to talk?" she asked gently. I shook my head. Not yet. I blocked Greg's number before I fell asleep. Then his social media, then his email. I even muted every mutual friend group chat. I didn't want updates. I didn't want explanations. I wanted silence, the kind that lets your heart reset. The silence the next morning hit harder than expected. When I woke up on the couch with sunlight in my eyes, a strange numbness wrapped around me. No messages from Greg, no missed calls, no apologies. Of course, why would there be? He had Lena. He had options. He had adventure. He had everything I apparently wasn't. But I had something too, the feeling that for the first time in a long time, my life was not centered around someone else's chaos. The first few days were foggy. I questioned myself constantly. Was I overreacting? Was I being dramatic? Was loyalty really just boring? Had I been too stable, too reliable, too much of the woman who paid bills on time, and not enough of the woman who leapt off cliffs for fun? But every time doubt crept in, I remembered his smile, that small, smug smirk, when he said, "If things do not work out with her, you're next in line." Next in line, like I was a spare tire, like he was doing me a favor by keeping me in his back pocket, like I should be grateful to be anyone's second choice. No, I was done being optional. So I redirected everything into rebuilding. I went back to the gym not to chase adventure like he craved, but to reconnect with myself. I started taking long walks around downtown, letting my thoughts breathe. I picked up an old hobby watercolor painting, even though I was terrible at it. I bought plants and actually kept them alive. At work, I volunteered for that out-of-town project I had once turned down, so Greg and I could stay close. It was a complicated assignment, high pressure, but I threw myself into it. And when the project ended weeks later, my manager called me into his office. "Rebecca, you handled that flawlessly. We're recommending you for a raise." I walked out of that office feeling taller, lighter, as if some invisible weight had slipped off my shoulders. Meanwhile, mutual friends occasionally dropped hints, even though I'd tried to mute everything. "Greg and Lena are official now," someone wrote in a group chat I hadn't been brave enough to leave yet. Another message a week later. "Dude, they're already posting couple selfies." I didn't reply. I didn't even feel the sting I expected. Because here's the thing, no one tells you. When you stop being someone's emotional babysitter, you get your life back. I rented a small studio downtown with tall windows and too much sunlight. I bought a cheap sofa, some shelves, and a fluffy rug that felt absurdly soft under my feet. For the first time, every object in my home was something I chose, not something Greg didn't mind or thought was fine. My friends noticed the difference. "You seem lighter," Erica said one night as we shared dumplings at my new kitchen counter. "I think I am," I admitted. Because the betrayal still hurt, yes. Betrayal always hurts. But the pain was beginning to transform into something else clarity. Let him chase excitement. Let him chase sparks. Let him chase whatever 5-minute thrill inflated his ego. I was building a life that didn't depend on being anyone's backup plan. What I didn't know was that Greg's so-called adventure was already starting to collapse slowly then, all at once. And soon the consequences of everything he'd chosen would start creeping back toward me. Whether I wanted them to or not. I was not checking up on Greg. Truly, I was not. I had blocked him everywhere, muted our mutual group chats, and avoided anything that could pull me back into the orbit of his chaos. But the city we live in is small in all the ways that matter. News moves fast, especially when it is messy. And his news was messy. The first sign of his unraveling came through a muted group chat I had forgotten to leave. A preview flashed on my phone screen before disappearing Greg and that girl. Disaster. I ignored it, or tried to. But details have a way of slipping through cracks. Someone at work mentioned casually over lunch that Greg and Lena had taken a weekend trip together. It was supposed to be some adventurous getaway hikes, rooftop drinks, sunrise photos. Instead, Lena's ex-boyfriend showed up at their hotel shouting at Greg in the lobby, accusing him of being a rebound. People filmed it, guests stared. Lena stormed off with her ex, leaving Greg alone with whatever dignity he had left. I did not feel triumphant, just strangely still like watching a storm from behind a window after narrowly escaping it. Days later, Erica told me she had run into a mutual friend who said Greg had started seeing a woman from a poetry cafe, a barista with tattoos, dyed hair, and a free spirit aesthetic the old Greg used to romanticize. Their whirlwind connection lasted 4 days. She told people he was too intense, too clingy, and emotionally draining. Hearing that felt surreal. The man who once called me predictable and safe was now overwhelming women who barely knew him. I ignored the updates, but they kept coming. One evening, a coworker pulled me aside in the break room and said, "Did you hear about Greg at work?" I shook my head, pretending I did not care, even though I braced internally. Apparently, a flirtatious colleague had taken advantage of his emotional spiral, using his interest to secure a coveted project. Once she got what she wanted, she ignored him. He reacted poorly, confronted her, and it sparked gossip throughout the office. Management stepped in. Greg received a formal warning about unprofessional conduct and was reassigned to basic administrative tasks. The same man who once joked that he was too talented for boring desk work was now scheduling meeting rooms and printing agendas. The next wave of chaos came from someone I barely remembered, Greg's ex from college. She had resurfaced in his life and pulled him back into a quiet affair. The problem was that she was married now. Her husband discovered their messages and made her promise to expose everything if he ever cheated again. She posted screenshots online, tagging Greg publicly. Old friends unfollowed him. His reputation, already shaky, took a nosedive. Even I felt the sting of secondhand embarrassment, and I was miles away from the wreckage. I thought that would be the end of it, but his downfall kept spiraling. The last woman he pursued was a match from a dating app. She told him she could get discounted concert tickets, but she needed the money up front. He transferred it. She disappeared. No tickets, no explanation. Some people online laughed about it when they heard the story. It spread faster than I expected. By that point, Greg's life had deflated completely. In a matter of weeks, he had been cheated on, ghosted, used, humiliated, scammed, demoted, and socially abandoned. I heard he had moved back in with his parents because he could not afford the apartment alone. Mutual friends stopped inviting him places, tired of the drama he carried like a storm cloud. The irony was impossible to ignore. He had accused me of being too safe, too boring, too predictable. Yet here he was, drowning in the unpredictable chaos he claimed he wanted. I was not happy about his suffering, but I was no longer grieving him either. What I felt was something quieter, the soft, settling understanding that the life he left me for was never real. It was a fantasy built on adrenaline and ego, and fantasies collapse when reality demands structure. Meanwhile, my own life was beginning to feel rooted again. I had a new apartment drenched in sunlight, each morning shelves filled with books. I finally had time to read weekends, busy with hikes and painting. Work was better than ever. My boss had noticed my dedication to the new project and floated the possibility of a higher leadership role. Friends told me I looked lighter, like I had shed a weight I didn't know I had been carrying. But beneath all that peace, there was something else. A quiet pressure building, like the air before a storm. Because as Greg's life crumbled, I knew the pattern well. He would not stay silent forever. He had lost Lena. He had lost the barista. He had lost the coworker, the married ex, the scammer, the admiration, the job stability, the respect. And in his mind, that left only one thing: me. I could feel it coming, not because I wanted it, but because I knew him. He could not stand the idea of being alone, and he truly believed that no matter what happened, I would always be there. He was wrong, but that would not stop him from trying. The storm was coming. I could feel it in my bones. The first message came on a Wednesday afternoon while I was heating leftovers at work. I had briefly unblocked Greg to handle some forwarded mail from our old apartment complex. It should have taken 5 minutes. Instead, my phone buzzed with his name almost immediately. "Hey, stranger, miss our movie nights." My stomach tightened, not from longing, from recognition. This was exactly the tone he used whenever he wanted something: light, casual, manipulative. I blocked him again without replying. The next day, another message came through email. Come on, Rebecca, don't be like that. We were good together. I deleted it. By Friday morning, the tone shifted completely. Voicemails, long, breathy ones, I refused to listen to, piling up back to back. One text managed to slip through on a platform I forgot to mute. Rebecca, please. I know I messed up. Lena was a mistake. Everything after her was a mistake. You're the real thing. Can we talk? It would have hit differently months ago. But now the words felt hollow, like someone knocking on a door I'd already bricked shut. The following week, things escalated. A coworker messaged me out of nowhere. Your ex is here at the old office asking for you. He looks rough. I stared at the screen, then typed back, I transferred months ago. Please tell him that. He did. Greg left. But the fact that he had shown up at my workplace uninvited, unannounced, left a cold ripple across my spine. His family stepped in next. A call from a blocked number late one night, and a woman's irritated voice blasted through the speaker before I could hang up. You think you're too good now. It was his sister. Greg is hurting because of you. Man up and talk to him. I'm not a man, I said calmly. Then I hung up. His mother emailed me the next day a guilt-filled wall of text about how family sticks together and how I should support Greg during a difficult period. She conveniently left out the part where her son told me I was a fallback. I deleted it without responding. The pressure built slowly like water rising under a closed door. Every time I thought it would stop, another message slipped through somewhere digital cracks I hadn't sealed yet. But the breaking point arrived on a Sunday afternoon. I had just finished watering my plants when a knock sounded on my apartment door. Soft at first, then firmer, like someone trying to decide if they should announce themselves or keep pretending everything was normal. I looked through the peephole. Greg. He was standing there in a wrinkled shirt hair, unwashed, eyes frantic in a way that made him look smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally, like the confidence he used to wear had been stripped away. I opened the door just an inch, enough to speak. Why are you here? He exhaled shakily, pushing his hand through his hair. Rebecca, please, just hear me out. 2 minutes, please. Against my better judgment, I stepped back and let him inside. Maybe I wanted closure. Maybe I wanted proof that I had truly moved on. Maybe I wanted to see the reality of what I'd escaped. He paced the living room as though it still belonged to him. All 5 women. They messed me up, he said, voice trembling. Lena cheated. The barista ghosted me. That coworker used me and humiliated me. My ex's husband threatened me. And that concert ticket woman scammed me. Everything is falling apart. I folded my arms. Your choices led you there. He stopped pacing, staring at me with a desperate, fragile intensity. No, you don't understand. All I needed was excitement. Something different. But it was all fake. You were the only real thing. The only stable person in my entire life. There it was, the truth he had come to deliver not out of love, but out of need. He stepped closer. Remember how you always said you'd be there? I need that now. Please, give me another chance. I'll change. No more adventure crap. No more other women. Just us. Just us. The phrase felt foreign now, like a language I had forgotten. You once told me I was next in line, I reminded him quietly. He flinched like I had slapped him. I didn't mean it. I was arrogant. I thought I had options. But they're gone. Everyone is gone. That is not my problem, I said. Tears filled his eyes. His voice cracked. Rebecca. Everyone abandoned me. My friends don't answer. My family says I brought this on myself. Please don't be another person who walks away. For a fraction of a second, I saw the old Greg, the one I once cooked dinner for, held hands with, waited up for defended. But then I remembered the park bench. The flicker of his smile, the way he spoke about me like I was a spare battery. Compassion did not erase memory. Greg, I said, you didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you treated my loyalty like garbage. His expression hardened. That fragile vulnerability snapped back into bitterness, like a rubber band stretched too far. So that's it, he hissed. You're just heartless now. You think you're too good for me. No, I said calmly. I think I'm good enough for myself. He stared at me, breathing hard, waiting for me to break, to soften, to apologize for protecting my own peace. I didn't. Get out, I said, not cruelly. Just firmly, the way you close a book you finished reading. He lingered a moment longer, searching my face for the woman he used to lean on. But she was gone. He walked out slowly, shoulders hunched, muttering something under his breath. I locked the door immediately. My hand shook, but not from fear, from the adrenaline of freedom. The messages continued after that. Waves of anger, guilt, pleading, manipulation, all ignored. Eventually, I called building security after his sister tried to show up again, shouting nonsense in the hallway. It was exhausting, but something inside me had shifted permanently. He no longer had access to my self-worth. He no longer held the keys to my emotional house. He was noise now, loud, jarring noise, but powerless. I slept soundly that night for the first time in years, because he had finally crossed the line, and I had finally closed the door. Tom's wedding invitation had been sitting on my counter for weeks unopened, except for the RSVP I submitted online without thinking too deeply. I almost backed out the morning of the event. Weddings have a way of stirring up every emotion you thought you'd buried neatly. But I refused to keep shrinking my world because Greg existed somewhere in it. I bought a dress that fit like confidence, curled my hair, put on soft amber perfume, and reminded myself this was not his story anymore. I arrived at the garden venue just before sunset. It looked like something out of a magazine, rows of golden chairs, a reflective pond, soft music floating from hidden speakers, lanterns swaying in the warm breeze. The string lights overhead were eerily similar to the ones in the park, where everything fell apart. Except now I didn't feel like someone waiting to be chosen. I felt like someone who had chosen herself. I came with someone too, Noah Parker. We had met at a hiking event months after I left Greg. Noah wasn't flashy, but he was steady in a way that never belittled me. He valued stability without calling it boring. If Greg was a sparkler that fizzled out quickly, Noah was a steady flame on a winter night, quiet, warm, dependable. He held my hand as we walked in, and I felt grounded instead of anxious. I spotted Greg before he spotted me. He was near the bar, slouched over a drink that looked like it had been refilled too many times. His suit hung loosely on him, as though he had lost weight, and his eyes had that unfocused glassiness I'd come to recognize during the worst moments of our relationship. People weren't flocking around him. They weren't even glancing his way. He looked like a forgotten guest at his own life. He finally noticed me when I laughed at something Noah said. The moment he saw our hands intertwined, his entire posture stiffened. He set his drink down too hard, sloshing liquid over the rim, then wiped his hands on his pants before walking toward us. Noah felt the tension and squeezed my hand gently. "I can step away," he murmured. "I'll be fine," I assured him. He nodded and moved toward a table while I stayed rooted where I stood. Greg stopped a few feet away, forcing a smile that didn't come close to reaching his eyes. "Rebecca," he said, voice hoarse. "Didn't expect to see you here." "I was invited," I replied simply. He swallowed hard, glancing over at Noah before focusing on me again. "Can we talk alone?" he asked. "Just a minute." Noah gave me a supportive look from across the garden. I nodded at him, and he drifted away so Greg and I could speak. Greg exhaled shakily once we were out of earshot. "You look good," he said quietly. "Thank you." He shifted his weight, hands trembling slightly. "Listen, I know I've been a mess," he began, "but seeing you now with him, it hit me hard. I've been thinking a lot. I messed everything up. I threw away the only real relationship I ever had. Everyone I chased after hurt me. They used me. They walked all over me. I deserved it, I guess." His voice cracked. "I've been in therapy," he added quickly, like he wanted credit for it. "Trying to fix myself. Trying to understand why I acted the way I did. But Rebecca, the truth is, I want another chance. I want us. I want what we had. I see it all clearly now. You were the right one." There it was, the speech I knew would come. The predictable plea wrapped in regret and embellished with desperation. Another chapter in the same worn-out book. I looked at him for a long moment, letting the lantern light soften the edges of his face. "We have history," he pressed. "That means something, doesn't it? We can rebuild. I can be better." History, as if years of stability and sacrifice automatically translated into obligation. "No, Greg," I said gently. "It doesn't mean what you think it means." His face fell. "That's it," he whispered. "You're just going to throw us away." I met his eyes head on. "You threw us away," I said softly. "I just accepted it." He opened his mouth, but no words came out. I continued steady and calm. "You once told me I was your backup plan. You don't get to come back now and ask me to pretend that never happened. I'm not angry anymore. I don't hate you, but I'm done being anyone's insurance policy." He blinked fast, like he was trying not to cry. "So I'm irrelevant to you now?" he asked bitterly. I shook my head. "No, you're just not part of my life anymore." The simplicity of the sentence landed harder than anything else I could have said. He stepped back as if the air between us pushed him away. He looked around at the lanterns, the happy guests, the life moving forward all around him. Then he looked back at me, shoulders sinking under the weight of everything he had lost. So that's it, he whispered. You've really moved on. I have, I said, and I meant it. There was no venom in my voice, no lingering heartbreak, just truth. Greg wiped at his eyes roughly and nodded defeated. Goodbye, Rebecca. Goodbye, Greg. He walked away slowly, blending into the crowd like someone dissolving into background noise. A blur, a memory. Noah returned to my side just as Greg disappeared. You okay? He asked softly. I nodded and slipped my hand into his. Better than okay, I said, ready to enjoy the night. We stood under the lantern lights as the ceremony music began, warm air stirring the leaves above us. I felt calm, light, whole. For the first time in a long time, I realized the story was no longer about losing a man who didn't value me. It was about finding myself and choosing a life where I was never anyone's next in line again. It was not triumph I felt, not revenge, just closure. And that was enough.